I mean, how much does this go to the very heart, basically, of what Qualcomm's business model is?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question, Carolyn. This isn't just a nice little sideline for this company. We're talking billions of dollars of high-margin revenue that come in every year, and that money is used to fund an industry-leading R&D effort, which gives Qualcomm the best chips in the industry. If you want to buy a 5G phone right now, or perhaps for the rest of this year, you're going to be buying a Qualcomm chip, and that puts this company in a very strong position. Threat to that is clearly serious, and that's what the market's reflecting today.
Let's get a market perspective now, because Bernstein senior analyst Stacy Rasgon is joining us on the phone as well. And Stacy, your perspective on the severity of the sell-off, is it in line with the severity of the risk to the business model?
In theory, yes, although I'm a little surprised at the magnitude, because I would have thought if you were paying attention to the trial itself in January, the idea that they were likely to lose was probably not going to be a surprise. That seemed pretty clear from the tone and mannerisms that emerged from the trial. Although I would say that maybe in the wake of the Apple settlement, investors were hoping that Judge Koh might go easier on them. It doesn't seem to be the case. And I think, as I just heard Ian say, it does actually go to the heart of the business model. And now the risk is that, we'll see what happens, like with the appeal and everything, but the risk is obviously that the fundamental drivers of that business model are at risk, given the remedies that Judge Koh has mandated here.
Yeah, as one of our colleagues, Shira Overday, wrote, it may reduce royalty payments, rewrite every customer contract, open up its trove of IP to rival chip companies. Ian, it's already rewritten its customer contract with Apple. Will that remain in place, or will that be some sort of standard bearer for what the contracts look like going forward with other companies?
Yeah, I mean, there's two things here. The first thing is there were no provisions that automatically triggered a recasting of that contract, of that agreement, and that was some news we broke earlier today, so we're sure about that. But back to what Stacy was saying, the judge in demanding remedies says that Apple has to go back out, says that Qualcomm has to go back out there and renegotiate any of its existing agreements, which are, based upon this bad behavior. So we really don't know yet, is the answer.
It comes at a very interesting time, Stacy, given the pivotal role Qualcomm plays within 5G, the race that we have seen between China and the United States, the blacklisting of Huawei. It all seems to be a pretty opportune moment for potentially even Trump himself to weigh in and in some way try and support what he hopes is going to be a beacon of growth for 5G in the US. Do you in any way anticipate government interference in this?
It's possible. I mean, we already started to see some government interference in this case. The DOJ had filed, a statement of interest a couple of weeks ago, essentially asking Judge Koh that if she found against Qualcomm, they were asking for another separate hearing to discuss remedies. And Judge Koh basically dismissed that in her ruling there. I mean, the judiciary is independent and she can do what she wants. Now, when Qualcomm goes ahead and appeals to the Ninth Circuit, maybe there's another opportunity there for some of the other governmental agencies to weigh in, Trump to weigh in, and maybe they'll potentially find a softer go in the appeal case. Call me in a year, though. I mean, it's going to take a while.
Yeah, and so from your perspective, with Qualcomm selling off as hard as it has, we're still seeing 19 buys on the stock, 0 sells. From your perspective and the rating that you have and the way in which you analyze the company, are you expecting some sort of bounce back in the share price?
I don't know. Again, the issue now is that if people had thought in the wake of the Apple settlement of the licensing that the overhangs on the licensing business were over with, and that story could emerge. Those overhangs, different overhangs, but overhangs are now back. And if you're worried about the licensing business, the rest of the story is an Apple-driven chipset story that doesn't really start to play out until 2021, which is a long ways away from now. And so that's likely to sit on it. And we'll see if it bounces back. And, we've done a piece of work about a dozen times over the last few years, the kind of the what's priced in note work. It's probably time to sort of start to revisit that again and sort of see what's priced in here. But I sort of understand what's going on. Again, if people wanted that licensing business to be free to breathe, and it's no longer free to breathe anymore, and now you're relying on an Apple-driven chipset story, that's a lot less attractive than maybe things looked, a week or two ago.